My wife, Ellen, gripped my arm, her eyes wild with a fear I'd never seen in our 20 years together. "Darcy, please," she whispered, her voice trembling, "don't go in that room." The door to the attic loomed behind her, its lock new and gleaming, hiding something that would shatter our marriage. I didn't know then what I'd find, but her plea was the crack that broke everything. I stood in the kitchen of our Vermont farmhouse, the morning light slanting through the frost-etched windows, painting the oak table where Ellen and I had shared countless breakfasts. At 48, I was a man of routine, my calloused hands worn from years as a stonemason, my graying hair tucked under a wool cap, my hazel eyes steady but searching. The farmhouse, nestled in the hills of Westford, was our haven, 2 stories of creaking floors and memories, built on 20 years of marriage. Ellen, my wife, was the heart of it, her laugh a melody, her warmth a constant. But lately, something had shifted, and her plea last night, "Don't go in that room," was a shadow I couldn't shake. Ellen was at the stove, stirring oatmeal, her auburn hair tied back, her movements quick, almost nervous. At 46, she was still striking, her blue eyes sharp, though they'd grown distant, like a lake icing over. We'd met in college, 2 kids from small towns, bonded over late-night coffee and dreams of a quiet life. Our marriage wasn't perfect. Money was tight, our son Caleb was off at college, leaving the house too still, but it was ours, a stone wall I'd thought unyielding. Now, as I sipped my coffee, the memory of her words gnawed at me, a puzzle with missing pieces. It had happened after dinner, the air thick with the scent of roasted chicken. I'd mentioned fixing the attic's leaky window, a chore I'd put off too long. The attic was a clutter of boxes, old furniture, and Caleb's childhood toys, a space we rarely touched. Ellen's reaction was instant, her hand gripping my arm, her voice low and urgent. "Darcy, please, don't go in that room." I'd frowned, confused, her fear a jolt. "Why not? It's just the attic." She'd hesitated, her eyes darting away. "It's a mess. I'm sorting it, private stuff. Promise me you won't." Her plea was raw, and I'd nodded, my trust in her outweighing my curiosity. "Okay, Ellen. I won't." But the lock I'd noticed later, shiny and new on the attic door, was a question mark I couldn't erase. I set my mug down, the clink loud in the quiet. "You sleep okay?" I asked, my voice casual, testing the waters. Ellen turned, her smile quick but thin. Thanks. You." Her eyes didn't meet mine, her focus on the oatmeal, and I felt a pang, confusion, maybe doubt. "She's stressed," I told myself. "Work's been tough." Ellen ran a small bookstore in town, its hours long, its profit slim. Lately, she'd been distracted, her evenings spent inventorying or meeting suppliers, her returns home late. I'd chalked it up to the shop, but her plea about the attic was a crack in that explanation. The farmhouse was our story, each room a chapter. The living room, where we'd danced to old records. The porch, where we'd watched Caleb chase fireflies. Our bedroom, where we'd whispered dreams. The attic, though, was a blank page, rarely used since Caleb left for college. Why lock it now? Why beg me to stay out? My internal monologue was a churn. She's hiding something. Or maybe it's nothing, a surprise, a project. Hope flickered. She'd planned a secret anniversary trip once, her secrecy sweet then. But this felt different, heavier, her fear too real. I drove to work, the Vermont hills rolling past, their snow-dusted peaks a familiar comfort. My crew was rebuilding a stone wall for a client, the work grounding me, each rock a puzzle to fit. My foreman, Pete, a wiry guy with a quick grin, noticed my silence. "You good, Darcy?" he asked, tossing me a water bottle. I shrugged, my hands cold on the stone. "Ellen's acting off. Asked me not to go in the attic, got real intense." Pete's brow furrowed. "That's weird. What's up there?" I shook my head, the question echoing my own. "No idea. She says it's private." Pete clapped my shoulder. "Hermit, don't let it sit." His advice was a spark, but I wasn't ready, loyalty holding me back. Back home, the unease grew. Ellen was out her book club, running late, her text brief, home by 9. I wandered the house, the creaks familiar but lonely. The attic door at the end of the upstairs hall loomed, its lock a taunt. I touched the handle, my pulse quick, but stopped. Her plea, "Promise me," was a chain. Instead, I checked her desk, guilt pricking me, finding only bills and bookstore receipts. But her coat, hung by the door, held a faint scent, not her usual lavender, but something sharper, like cedar cologne. My stomach twisted, doubt creeping in, a seed I couldn't uproot. I sat on the porch, the stars sharp above, my coffee cold. "What's in that room, Ellen? Why are you pulling away?" The questions were a tide, pulling at 20 years of trust. I remembered our early days, her hand in mine, her dreams of a bookstore, my promise to build her shelves. We'd weathered fights, lean years, Caleb's teenage storms. But this was new, a shadow I couldn't name. Hope clung, she'd explain, laugh it off, pull me close. But disappointment loomed, her distance a wall, the locked door a symbol of something hidden. Ellen's car pulled in, her headlights cutting the dark. She stepped out, her smile tired, her coat tight around her. "Hey," she said, kissing my cheek, the cedar scent faint but there. "Hey," I replied, my voice even, my eyes searching hers. She didn't linger, heading inside, and I followed, the attic door a silent presence upstairs. The audience could feel the suspense, the slow burn of a man caught between love and doubt, his heart a stone wall with a crack widening. I'd promised not to enter that room, but the truth was calling, and I, Darcy, loyal but waking, was starting to listen. The Vermont frost clung to the farmhouse windows, a fragile lace that blurred the dawn's light. I stood in the living room, a mug of coffee warming my calloused hands, the familiar creak of the oak floor under my boots a small comfort. At 48, I was a stonemason, grounded by the weight of stone, but Ellen's plea, "Don't go in that room," had unsettled me, a crack in the foundation of our 20-year marriage. A week had passed since she'd gripped my arm, her blue eyes wild, begging me to stay out of the attic. Now, subtle changes in her behavior, whispers in the dark, and sounds from that locked door were weaving a tapestry of unease, my confusion and doubt growing like moss on stone. Ellen was in the kitchen, slicing apples for a pie, her auburn hair tied back, her movements precise but distant. She'd always been the warmth of our home, her bookstore's chaos balanced by her laughter, but lately, she was a stranger in our space. Her smiles were fleeting, her gaze skittering away from mine, as if I were a question she couldn't answer. Last night, she'd come home late from inventory, her coat carrying that cedar scent again, her excuse a mumbled, lost track of time. I'd nodded, my hazel eyes searching hers, but she turned away, her silence a wall. "What's pulling you from me, Ellen?" My internal monologue churned, hope clinging to her love, doubt whispering of secrets. The attic door haunted me, its new lock a taunt at the end of the upstairs hall. I'd pass it daily, my hand brushing the knob, her plea, "It's private," a chain holding me back. But strange sounds had started, faint but persistent, seeping through the floorboards at night. A soft thump, like a box shifting, or a muffled hum, like a voice cut short. I'd lie awake, Ellen's breathing steady beside me, my heart quickening as I strained to hear. It's an old house, I told myself, pipes, maybe. But the noises were too deliberate, too human, and my unease grew, a tide eroding my trust. Ellen's behavior fed the tension. She'd take phone calls in the backyard, her voice low, her words swallowed by the wind. "Just a supplier," she'd say, slipping her phone into her pocket, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine, her fingers twitching. 2 nights ago, I'd woken at 3 a.m., the bed empty, and found her in the hall, whispering into her phone, the attic door behind her. "Not now," she'd hissed, then froze as I appeared. "Couldn't sleep," she said, her smile forced, her coat draped over her arm, the cedar scent sharp. I'd nodded, my throat tight, But the moment lingered, a clue I couldn't shake. Our farmhouse, once a haven, felt like a stranger's territory. The living room's records gathered dust, the porch swing untouched. Ellen's bookstore trips stretched longer, her returns marked by a distracted air, her hands clutching bags I wasn't allowed to carry. "Fragile stock," she'd say, her voice clipped, and I'd let it go, loyalty warring with suspicion. She stressed, I reasoned, the shop struggling. But the hope was fragile, cracked by her distance, the way she'd flinch when I touched her, as if my love were an intrusion. I confided in Pete, my foreman, over lunch at the worksite, the stone wall we were building a mirror to my crumbling trust. "Ellen's off," I said, my voice low, the wind biting my face. "Won't let me in the attic, acting secretive. I hear noises up there." Pete's grin faded, his wiry frame leaning closer. "Noises? Like what?" I shrugged, my hands cold. "Thumps, voices, maybe. She says it's her space, but it's wrong." Pete's eyes narrowed. "You gotta ask her, Darcy. That's not normal." His words were a spark, but doubt held me back. 20 years of vows, of Ellen's hand in mine, made me hesitate. What if I'm wrong? The audience could feel my confusion, the slow burn of unease in my small gestures. Pausing by the attic door, my fingers grazing the lock, staring at Ellen's coat, its cedar sent a ghost. At home, I began watching closer, noting her patterns. She'd lock the attic door each morning, the key vanishing into her purse. Her phone was a fortress, its passcode changed, its screen tilted away. One evening as she showered, I checked her purse, guilt pricking me, and found a receipt, coffee for 2 at a cafe I didn't know, dated during her book club. My stomach twisted, the paper a weight in my hand, but it wasn't enough, a hint, not proof. The tension coiled tighter, my internal monologue a storm. "What's in that room, Ellen? Who are you calling in the dark?" Hope flickered. She'd hugged me yesterday, her arms tight, her voice soft. "I love you, Darcy." But disappointment followed, her eyes distant, her warmth a fleeting mask. The noises grew bolder, a low murmur last night, cut off as I stirred. I'd sat up, Ellen asleep, or pretending, my pulse racing. Someone's up there. Or something. The thought was a blade, cutting through my loyalty, my fear of losing her. The unsettling discovery came on a frigid evening, as I chopped wood in the backyard, the axe's rhythm grounding me. Ellen was out, her supplier meeting vague, her car gone hours. I went inside for water, the house silent, and noticed her scarf on the hall table, forgotten in her rush. I picked it up, the wool soft, and a small key slipped out, clinking to the floor. It was new, its shape matching the attic lock, a secret she'd meant to hide. My breath caught, my fingers closing around it, the metal cold and heavy. "Why hide this, Ellen? What's so private you need a lock?" I stood by the attic door, the key in my hand, my heart a drumbeat. Her plea, "Promise me," echoed, but the noises, her distance, the cedar scent, the whispered calls were louder. The key was a clue, a confirmation something was wrong, but I didn't turn the lock, not yet. Loyalty, or fear, held me back, the truth a shadow I wasn't ready to face. I slipped the key into my pocket, my resolve hardening. The audience could sense the suspense, the small discovery a hook pulling me closer to the attic secret. I returned to the porch, the stars cold above, and knew I couldn't ignore it much longer. Ellen's secret was upstairs, and I, Darcy, was waking to the need to know, my trust crumbling like a wall under frost. The Vermont snow fell in soft curtains, blanketing the farmhouse in a hush that mirrored the silence between Ellen and me. I stood in the garage, sharpening my chisels, the metallic scrape a counterpoint to the storm in my chest. At 48, I was a stonemason, my life built on fitting stones into lasting walls, but my 20-year marriage was crumbling, eroded by Ellen's secrecy and the locked attic door she'd begged me not to enter. 2 weeks had passed since I found the key in her scarf, its weight a constant in my pocket, a symbol of the truth I both craved and feared. The noises, her distance, the cedar scent, they were clues I couldn't ignore, yet my loyalty to Ellen tore me apart, my heart a battlefield of trust and doubt. The tension was a vice, squeezing tighter with each day. Ellen's behavior grew more guarded, her blue eyes avoiding mine, her laughter a rare echo in our home. She'd leave for the bookstore early, return late, her excuses, inventories a mess, new supplier issues, thin as the frost on our windows. Her phone calls, once open, were now whispered in the backyard or cut short when I entered. Last night, I'd caught her by the attic door, her hand on the lock, her face paling as she saw me. "Checking the insulation," she'd said, her voice too quick, the cedar scent clinging to her coat. I'd nodded, my jaw tight, but the lie was a pebble in my shoe, impossible to ignore. The attic noises were bolder, a low hum or a shuffle waking me at odd hours. 3 nights ago, I'd heard footsteps, deliberate and heavy, stopping when I sat up. Ellen slept, or pretended to, her breathing even, but I lay awake, my pulse a drumbeat. Someone's up there, my internal monologue hissed, or something. The thought was a splinter, piercing my hope that this was a misunderstanding. I'd picture Ellen planning a surprise, her secrecy a gift, but the noises, the key, her distance, they painted a darker truth. "What are you hiding, Ellen? Why can't I trust you?" Flashbacks of our marriage haunted me, each a stab of love and loss. I remembered our first winter in the farmhouse, Ellen's auburn hair dusted with snow as we hauled a Christmas tree inside, her laugh warming the cold. We danced in the living room, her head on my chest, dreaming of Caleb's future. Another memory, her bookstore's opening, me building her shelves, her blue eyes bright with pride as she kissed me. "We're unstoppable, Darcy," she'd said. Those moments were stones in our wall, solid, but now they felt like ruins, overshadowed by her whispered calls, the locked door, the fear in her plea, "Don't go in that room." My internal conflict was a storm, the audience feeling its weight in my trembling hands as I worked stone at the job site. I wanted to trust Ellen, to believe her love, our history, was stronger than my doubts. She'd hugged me yesterday, her arms tight, her voice soft. "You're my rock, Darcy." The words sparked hope, a vision of us repairing this rift, but her eyes darted away, her phone buzzing, and disappointment crushed me. "She's lying," my mind whispered, "but what if I'm wrong?" The key in my pocket was a constant pull, urging me to unlock the truth, but loyalty held me back. 20 years, vows, Caleb's smile binding us. What if I opened that door and lost her forever? I tried confronting her, each attempt a failure that deepened the suspense. Over dinner, stew, the candles flickering, I tested the waters. "Ellen, what's going on with you?" I asked, my voice calm, my hazel eyes searching. "You're distant, secretive." She froze, her spoon pausing, her smile strained. "Just work stress, Darcy. You know the shop's tight." Her answer was a dodge, her eyes on her plate, and I pressed, my tone gentle but firm. "It's more than that. The attic, the late nights, what's up there?" Her hand trembled, her voice sharp. "I told you it's private. Why can't you trust me?" The accusation stung, her defensiveness a wall, and I backed off, my heart sinking. She's hiding something and she knows I know. Another attempt came in the living room, the fire crackling, her phone silent for once. "Ellen, I hear noises upstairs," I said, my voice low, testing. "At night from the attic." Her eyes widened, a flash of fear, then smoothed over. "Old house, Darcy. Probably squirrels." Her laugh was forced, her hand clutching her mug, and I wanted to shake her, demand the truth, but her plea, "Promise me," echoed, and I faltered. "If you say so," I said, my voice flat, my doubt a growing flame. Each failure tightened the vice, her lies a mirror to my crumbling trust. Pete, my foreman, sensed my turmoil at work, the stone wall we built a contrast to my fracturing life. "You talked to Ellen yet?" he asked, his wiry frame leaning against a boulder. I shook my head, my hands cold. Tried. She shuts me down. Found a key, though, for the attic lock. Pete's eyes narrowed. That's not right, Darcy. You gotta find out. Waiting's eating you. His words were a blade, cutting through my hesitation, but fear of what I'd find, betrayal, loss, kept me tethered to loyalty. The suspense rose, the audience feeling my unease in the quiet moments, pausing by the attic door, the key heavy in my pocket, staring at Ellen's coat, its cedar scent a taunt. The noises grew clearer, a muffled voice last night, cut off as I stirred. It's not squirrels, I thought, my heart racing. Ellen's distance, her lies, the key, they were a constellation pointing to a truth I couldn't avoid. Hope faded, the dream of her explaining, of us rebuilding, dimming against the reality of her secrecy. The turning point came on a snowy evening as I sat in the garage, the chisels gleaming, the key on the workbench. I held it, its edges biting my palm, and saw our marriage in flashes. Caleb's birth, Ellen's hand in mine, our vows. But the noises, her fear, the cedar scent were louder, a truth I couldn't ignore. I can't live like this, my internal monologue vowed, not knowing. Loyalty had held me, but doubt was stronger, the key a call to action. I decided I'd open the attic door, face whatever Ellen hid, no matter the cost. I slipped the key back in my pocket, the snow falling outside, my resolve a stone set firm, ready to break the lock and shatter the silence of our 20-year marriage. The Vermont night was a shroud of ink, the farmhouse swallowed by a silence broken only by the creak of settling wood. I stood at the top of the stairs, the attic door before me, its new lock gleaming like a warning in the dim hall light. At 48, I was a stonemason, my life built on the certainty of stone, but Ellen's secrecy, her plea, "Don't go in that room," had eroded the foundation of our 20-year marriage. The key, found in her scarf, burned in my pocket, its weight a call to truth I could no longer resist. The noises, her distance, the cedar scent, they'd led me here, and as I turned the lock, my heart pounded, a drumbeat of dread and resolve. What I found behind that door shattered everything I thought I knew, a revelation so raw it carved a wound that would never fully heal. The decision to open the door had crystallized last night, after another failed confrontation, Ellen's eyes dodging mine, her lies about squirrels, in the attic a flimsy veil. The noises, footsteps, murmurs, had grown too real, her whispered calls too frequent, the cedar scent too persistent. I'd lain awake, the key a talisman, my internal monologue a vow. I need the truth, Ellen, no matter how much it hurts. Now, with Ellen at her book club, her car gone, I was alone, the house a witness to my betrayal of her plea. My hand trembled as I inserted the key, the click loud in the quiet, the door swinging open with a groan that echoed my fear. The attic stairs were narrow, the air thick with dust and a faint, unfamiliar warmth. I climbed, my flashlight's beam cutting the dark, my breath shallow. The space was a maze of shadows, boxes, old chairs, Caleb's tricycle, but my eyes locked on a corner where a partition had been built, new plywood walls forming a room within the attic, its door ajar. My pulse roared, the noise's source clear, the cedar scent stronger here, mixed with something sweeter, like perfume. What have you done, Ellen? I stepped forward, my boots soft on the floor, and pushed the door open, the sight inside a sledgehammer to my chest. The room was a secret haven, a betrayal carved in wood and light. A small bed, neatly made, held pillows I didn't recognize, their fabric bright against the gloom. A desk bore a laptop, its screen dark, beside a stack of letters tied with ribbon. Photos lined a shelf, Ellen, smiling, her auburn hair loose, in the arms of a man I didn't know, his face sharp, his eyes dark, his cedar cologne a ghost in the air. A mirror reflected a vase of fresh roses, their petals a cruel echo of our wedding flowers. Worst of all, a calendar on the wall, marked with dates, meet tea at 8, spanning months, a timeline of her hidden life. This wasn't storage, it was a sanctuary for an affair, a parallel world where I didn't exist. Shock froze me, my flashlight trembling, the beam dancing over the photos. Ellen with him. Here in our home. My knees buckled and I sank to the floor, the wood cold under my hands. Heartbreak surged, a tidal wave of grief for the woman I'd loved, the marriage I'd built. 20 years, Caleb's birth, her bookstore, our dances, dissolved into this room, this lie. I reached for a letter, my fingers shaking, and read her handwriting, "Tom, you're my escape. I can't leave him, but I need you." The words were a blade, slicing through my trust, confirming she'd been seeing this man, Tom, for months, maybe years, hiding him in our attic, her plea a desperate shield to protect her secret. Disbelief clawed at me, my internal monologue a scream. How could you, Ellen? In our house? I saw her face, her blue eyes, her laugh, her hand in mine, and couldn't reconcile it with this betrayal. The cedar scent, her late nights, the noises, they weren't imagination. They were evidence of her double life. I opened the laptop, its password her birthdate, a cruel irony. Emails to Tita Hawkins filled the screen, her words intimate. Our room feels like home. A photo folder held more, Ellen and Tom at a lake, in a bar, here, their intimacy a theft of our marriage. My breath hitched, the images a gallery of my erasure. The audience could feel my devastation, the raw intensity in my trembling hands, the way I clutched a photo, Ellen's smile a stranger's. I was your rock, your home. Why wasn't I enough? The room was a shrine to her affair, each detail, roses, letters, the bed, a wound. I wanted to tear it apart, burn the letters, but my stonemason's discipline held me, my shock a heavy stone. I took photos with my phone, evidence of her betrayal, my heart a ruin but my resolve a spark. I'd confront her, demand answers, but the marriage I'd known was gone, its stones scattered. I stood, the attic closing in, the roses scent choking me. The calendar's latest mark, tea tonight, meant Tom might come, a risk I couldn't face yet. I locked the door, the key await, and descended, the farmhouse a hollow shell. My reflection in the hall mirror was a stranger, gray hair, hazel eyes wide with pain, a man unmoored. She begged me not to enter, I thought, because she knew this would end us. The truth was a bitter tide, inevitable, its darkness swallowing my hope. I slipped the key into my pocket, the snow falling outside, my heartbreak a fire that burned without warmth, ready to face Ellen and the wreckage of our 20 years. The Vermont dawn was a blade of gray, cutting through the farmhouse's frost-laced windows. I stood in the living room, my calloused hands clenched, the photos from the attic, Ellen with Tom, her secret lover, burning in my pocket like coals. At 48, I was a stonemason, my life built on the permanence of stone, but the discovery of Ellen's affair, hidden in our attic for months, had shattered our 20-year marriage. Her plea, "Don't go in that room," was a lie to protect her betrayal, and now, as she stirred in the kitchen, I braced for the confrontation that would end us. The truth was a bitter weight, but it had forged a quiet resolve in me, a path to closure through the ashes of our love. Ellen was at the counter, pouring coffee, her auburn hair loose, her blue eyes shadowed, unaware I'd seen her secret room. The cedar scent clung to her sweater, a taunt I couldn't ignore. My heart pounded, a mix of anger, grief, and disbelief, but my stonemason's discipline kept my voice steady. "Ellen," I said, stepping forward, my hazel eyes locking on hers, "we need to talk. Now." She froze, the mug trembling, her face paling as if she sensed the storm. "Darcy, what's wrong?" Her voice was thin, a thread about to snap. I pulled the photos from my pocket, setting them on the table, the images of her and Tom a silent accusation. I went in the attic. I know about Tom. The room stilled, the air heavy with her gasp. Her eyes darted to the photos, her smile in his arms, their attic haven, and she sank into a chair, her hands covering her face. Darcy, she started, but I cut her off, my voice low, raw with betrayal. Don't lie, Ellen. I saw the room, the bed, your letters. You've been with him here, in our home, for months. How could you? My anger surged, a fire fed by 20 years of trust, our dances, Caleb's laughter, our vows, now ashes. You begged me not to go in there because you knew this would destroy us. Ellen's tears fell, her voice breaking. I didn't mean for this to happen, she sobbed. Tim, he was there when I felt alone. The bookstore, the stress, it was too much. I still love you, Darcy. Her words were a knife, twisting in my chest, her love a hollow echo against her betrayal. Love, I said, my voice rising, grief choking me. You hid him in our attic, lied every day, chose him over me. That's not love, Ellen. That's theft. My hands shook, the photos a mirror to her double life. The cedar sent a ghost of her infidelity. The emotional fallout was a storm, the audience feeling my devastation in my clenched jaw, the way I paced, unable to sit. Why wasn't I enough? I asked, my voice cracking, the question a wound laid bare. Ellen looked away, her sobs muffled. You were enough, she whispered, but I was weak. Tom was an escape. Her admission was a confession, not an apology, and it gutted me. Her weakness had stolen our life, our home, our son's family. I wanted to scream, to tear the photos, but grief overwhelmed me, a tide of loss for the woman I'd danced with, the marriage I'd built stone by stone. The confrontation shifted me, the audience sensing the change in my steady stance, my eyes no longer soft. Betrayal had carved me raw, stripping the trust I'd worn like armor. I saw Ellen clearly now, not my partner, but a stranger who'd chosen escape over us. Anger burned, but grief was heavier, a stone I'd carry always. I'm done, I said, my voice quiet, final. This marriage is over. I'll tell Caleb the truth and I'm leaving. Ellen reached for me, her hand trembling. Darcy, please, we can fix this. But I stepped back, my resolve a wall. You broke it, Ellen. There's nothing left. I left her crying, the farmhouse a husk of memories. I packed a bag, drove to Pete's, my foreman and friend, who offered his guest room. You did the right thing, Pete said, his wiry frame a steady presence. You're stronger than this. His words were a spark, lighting the path to closure. I called Caleb, my voice steady as I told him, his shock a shared wound. I'm here, Dad, he said, and his love was a stone I'd build on. The divorce was set in motion, a lawyer hired, the farmhouse to be sold. Ellen could keep her attic, her roses, her Tom. Closure came quietly in my own way. I rented a cabin on Westford's edge, its pine walls a blank slate. Solitude was my refuge, the snow-covered hills a space to heal. I journaled nightly, my words raw. She broke me, but I'm not dust. I'm stone reshaped. The act was a release, each page a step toward peace. I returned to work, my hands finding rhythm in stone, my crew's banter a tether. Pete and his wife, Lila, became family, their dinners a warmth I'd forgotten. I hiked the trails, the crunch of snow grounding me, each step a shedding of Ellen's shadow. A symbolic act marked my letting go. On a clear evening, I drove to the river where Ellen and I had picnicked, our love young then. I held our wedding photo, her smile a ghost, and tore it, the pieces fluttering into the water, carried away. I release you, Ellen, I thought, my heart lighter, the grief a scar, not a wound. The audience could feel my closure, bittersweet but empowering, a man rebuilt from ruin. Back at the cabin, I stood on the porch, the stars sharp above, a new stone in my hand, a smooth river rock, my first piece for a new wall. Ellen's betrayal, her attic secret, had ended us, but it had forged me, scarred, but steady, a stonemason crafting his own path. I'm enough, my internal monologue vowed, the words a foundation. The farmhouse was gone, but I was here, my life a new structure, its stones set by my hands, its strength a quiet triumph over the devastation of a love lost.